Jeopardy! Host Ken Jennings halted filming and walked off stage after he spotted a game show legend making an appearance in the audience. A recent taping of the beloved trivia series had a massive surprise in store that not even Ken or the show producers were in on. One of the biggest stars to ever come out of the Jeopardy franchise, Sam Butry, left the studio stunned with an unannounced appearance, a source exclusively told the U.S. Sun. Sam, who recently announced his retirement from the show, was front and center to watch a taping of a recent episode. After the 2021 Professors Tournament champion was seated, multiple show producers were stunned to see him making an announcement to the crowd that Sam was in attendance. Ken, 50, then walked out on stage and began doing his first monologue. However, when he noticed Sam wearing a white button-down and his signature glasses, Ken was taken aback and stepped away from the podium. He walked off stage toward Sam, and was delighted to see his longtime pal coming to catch the show. Jeopardy! Icon Sam Butry everyone, Ken exclaimed to a crowd who roared with cheers in response. The pair talked for a moment before Ken resumed his hosting duties. Sam stayed for multiple game tapings, the insider revealed, as he was joined by a few friends. The college professor from Pacific Grove, California has built an impressive resume throughout his game show career. He made his TV debut in December 2021 during the Professors Tournament, where he came out on top and scored $100,000. After his earnings, Sam generously donated half of his prize money to the California State University Monterey Bay Scholarship Fund. "We saw it as found money," he said of him and his wife, Elinda. "Because it was local. We're interested in helping children from the community who might not have the resources to attend college." The keyboard enthusiast returned the following year for the Tournament of Champions, placing as the second runner-up and earning $50,000. In 2023, Sam came back once again for the Jeopardy! Masters Tournament, placing 6th overall and adding another $50,000 to his bank account. Earlier this year, Sam competed in the Jeopardy! Invitational Tournament where he made it through the semifinals before getting beat out. Sam gets the bag. He was able to add another $10,000 to his impressive earnings from the show. Sam became even more integrally part of the game show fabric after co-hosting the beloved Inside Jeopardy! Podcast. The Trivia Whiz typically discusses on-set secrets, insider gameplay and recaps from recent episodes. However, in a September podcast release, Sam made an announcement that left fans nearly in tears. He was hanging up his Jeopardy! Buzzer for good. Sam told the news to longtime Jeopardy! Producer Sam Whitcomb-Foss and exec producer Michael Davies on the airwaves. "I think, the time has come to, as you say, hang up the buzzer. You talk about getting an opportunity to watch the show, and how could you have a better job than that? Here I have the opportunity to watch Jeopardy! And talk about it. And you know what? I was going to do that anyway. So I've had a lot of fun playing the game. But if the cost of being here with you guys and focusing on the game is retirement, sure, I'm all for it." Michael replied, "The same year that Tom Brady leaves the field and goes into the broadcast booth, here, you're doing the same thing." Sam quipped back, "I am like Brady in so many ways." Ken Jennings had been hosting Jeopardy! For nearly a year now, and each day was as thrilling as the last. Over the months, he had grown comfortable on stage. The day had begun normally. The crew was setting up, and the contestants were going over the rules with the producers. Ken glanced at the audience, which was packed with eager fans, a few celebrity guests, and some lucky lottery winners. But as he adjusted his suit and prepared to make his way to the podium, something in the back row caught his eye. At first, he thought he was seeing things. The figure looked familiar, a tall, lean man with graying hair, dressed in a dark suit and sporting that unmistakable, confident smile. Ken blinked and looked again. There was no mistaking it. Sitting in the audience, looking as comfortable as if he belonged there, was Brad Rutter, the Jeopardy! Legend and his longtime rival. "Is that, Brad?" Ken muttered under his breath, his mind racing. Brad Rutter was not only one of Jeopardy's greatest champions but also someone who had beaten him on multiple occasions. They were friends off camera, of course, but on stage, they were rivals, each holding a piece of Jeopardy history. Without thinking, Ken signaled to the producers to pause the filming. Murmurs spread throughout the audience and crew as they noticed his unusual behavior. Ken took a step toward the crowd, a look of astonishment mixed with humor on his face. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, his voice echoing across the silent studio, "I think we have a very special guest in the audience today." The camera crew scrambled to follow his lead, focusing on the man Ken was pointing toward. Brad smiled sheepishly and gave a small wave as the audience erupted in applause, some even rising to their feet. The contestants on stage exchanged puzzled looks, but the excitement was infectious. "Brad Rutter, everyone!" Ken announced, gesturing grandly toward him. Brad waved again, this time more confidently, and a familiar gleam appeared in his eyes. Ken couldn't resist. He put down his cue cards, left the podium, and made his way into the audience, practically bounding up the steps. The crew looked around, uncertain, but the energy in the room was electric. As he reached Brad, Ken laughed. "You could have just come up and said hi, you know." "What's the matter? Missed being in front of the cameras?" Brad grinned, his response quick and clever as always. "Well, I had to make sure my old rival was still doing the job right." The crowd laughed, and Ken shook his head. "Well, everyone, since we've got Brad here, maybe he'd like to answer a question or two," Ken said, his eyes gleaming with mischief. The crowd cheered, and a few people chanted, "Brad! Brad! Brad!" Brad stood up, raising his hands to quiet the crowd. "Ken, I'm just here to watch. I don't want to embarrass you in front of everyone," he teased. Ken laughed and replied, "Oh, come on, Brad. I think I can take you. It's not like this is the Tournament of Champions." Brad feigned reluctance but eventually nodded, playing along with Ken's challenge. The crew and producers were loving it. They quickly mic'd up Brad, who took his place at a contestant's podium while the other contestants laughed and cheered him on. "What do you say we do a little mock game?" Ken suggested, looking around as the audience buzzed with excitement. 3 quick questions, and we'll see if Brad still has what it takes." Brad smirked, feigning cockiness. "I'll go easy on you," he replied, earning a roar of laughter from the crowd. Ken looked over at the clue board and selected 3 questions at random, each worth a different point value. He stepped back to his own podium, looking as competitive as he did during his early Jeopardy days. "All right, let's go." "For 200 points, Ken announced, this President of the United States